So the VA says it's reforming. Job cuts, hiring freezes, probationary employees getting axed by the thousands. But what if I told you those decisions weren't based on data, weren't based on workload, and definitely were not based on what veterans actually need? Instead, top down leadership made a move without knowing what or who keeps the system running.
So sorry.
I'm sorry, are we not being clear? We're trying to tell you that the entire planet is about to be destroyed.
Sound familiar? I know it will to any VA employee who's ever tried to make even just a small difference in this broken system. Because unfortunately, this isn't a movie. This is the Department of Veterans Affairs right now, and it's scary. Today, I'm pulling back the curtain on the VA's so-called reform plan. As someone who spent nearly a decade fighting to fix it from inside, who almost let the broken system break them. And now I'm bringing that fight to you, the American people, because gutting the system first isn't reform, it's how you break it for good. Let's just pause here for just a second. Why should you care? If you're not a veteran and you don't know any veterans, I may not agree, but hey, that's your right to ask that question. But here's the thing. The VA serves 9 million veterans and millions more caregivers. When the VA breaks, people get hurt. This isn't just paperwork. It's delayed biopsies, caregivers losing support, exhausted psychologists. And with a budget of over $3 billion, the VA is a test to our nation's promises. Try and think of it from another perspective. What's one way a woman might tell if a man will treat her right? How he treats his mom, right? So let me ask you this. If we can't get this right for veterans, who can we get this right for? Now, it's no secret at this point. The current administration has promised efficiency by cutting jobs. Sounds simple, right? But that's not reluctance to simplify. That's oversimplification. Because nothing says better veteran care like cutting the schedulers who actually make appointments happen, or the folks trying to enforce internal controls to make sure those appointments even exist. Let's take a listen to what the VA secretary had to say.
Thank you for being with us.
It's good to be with you.
So obviously, when the headlines hit, it made a lot of people apoplectic. 80,000 people. That's 4 Capital One arenas at capacity.
Right.
Who are these workers? How will this affect veteran care? Because at the end of the day, that's what this is all about.
Tom, thanks for that. Let's put this in perspective. For the last 10 years, the VA healthcare system has been on the high-risk list for GAO. 10 years. You know, there's some out there that want to think that before we got here and started actually looking at this, that the VA was perfect and everything was going fine. It really wasn't. 10 years being on the high-risk list. So when you look at this and you take a step back and you say, what are we doing and how are we doing it effectively? And one of the things we're looking at here, and this is, as you see numbers being thrown out there. This is a deliberative process that's going to be going through, in which we're actually going to take and look at our healthcare system, look at our benefits, and say, what do we need to be doing? How do we do it better? Because at the end of the day, our job is to provide services for our veterans. And when we do that, then the people are getting their benefits. And also at the same point, then maybe we can take a honest look at what GAO has already said, being on the high-risk list puts us at risk for fraud, waste, and abuse, puts us at risk for having patient care and quality go down. So that's what we're looking at.
First, I want everyone to really take a second and digest what he just said, because the details, they matter. And if you're not listening closely, it might sound like he's crossing his T's and dotting his I's. It's great VA buzzwords. It sounds official, it sounds reassuring, but here's the kicker. First, he claims there are people out there saying that the VA is perfect. I've worked in the VA for nearly a decade. I've known hundreds of employees and thousands of veterans. Let me be clear. Not a single person has ever said the VA is perfect. That's not just a straw man argument, it's a distraction. Second, notice how he pivots. He leans hard into the GAO's high-risk designation. He makes it sound like a rallying cry, a call to action. And on the surface, he's right. That designation should demand urgent reform. But here's where the disconnect comes in. Let me play that clip again for those who didn't quite catch it the first time.
And also at the same point, then maybe we can take a honest look at what GAO has already said, being on the high risk list puts us at risk for fraud, waste, and abuse, puts us at risk for having patient care and quality go down.
And there you have it. He says we, whoever this mysterious we is, are going to take a good look at what we're doing, figure out how we can do it better, and then, based on that, make some changes. Sounds reasonable until you catch that next part. Then he says maybe we can take an honest look at the GAO findings. Let me repeat that. He's using the GAO's high risk designation, the one that says the VA is vulnerable to fraud, waste, and abuse, and patient safety risks, as his big call to action. But his sequence is backwards. He's saying, step one, cut 80,000 jobs. Step two, look at the GAO reports. Maybe. I'm sorry, what? That's like saying, let's fix the fire hazards by firing the firefighters. And then maybe we'll read the inspection report.
Okay, look, you want to solve this problem. I want to get my pardon, so why don't we just try it, okay? And not worry about what plants crave.
Brondo's got what plants crave.
Yeah, it's got electrolytes.
What are electrolytes? Do you even know?
It's what they use to make Brondo.
Yeah, but why did they use them to make Brondo?
Because Brondo's got electrolytes.
But Brondo's got what plants crave. It's got electrolytes. What are electrolytes? They're what plants crave. Same logic. We cut the staff to make things better. Because reform. What's reform? It's what VA craves. Except just like Brondo, this isn't based on reality. It's based on a belief in a brand. Reform as a slogan, not a strategy.
Let's just keep doing the same thing that the VA has always done. No, not going to happen. The days of kicking the can down the road and measuring VA's progress by how much money it spends and how many people it employs rather than how many veterans it helps are over. Our goal is to reduce VA employment levels to 2019 in-strength numbers, roughly 398,000 employees, from our current level of approximately 470,000 employees. Now that's a 15% decrease.
Hey, come here, look at me. Hey, look at me. What'd I say? No. Come here, look at me. Hey, look at me. No. Come here, look at me.
Before we dive deeper, let's understand GAO, the Government Accountability Office. Think of them as the federal government's independent watchdog, providing Congress with fact-based, nonpartisan information to improve government operations. Over the years, the GAO has made numerous recommendations to the VA, aiming to enhance efficiency and veterans' care. As of May 2024, 28 priority recommendations remained open, addressing areas like appointment scheduling and IT management. Bypassing years of GAO research not only undermines informed decision-making, but also risks repeating past mistakes, leading to inefficiencies and potential harm to veteran services. Now, I don't know about you, but that in itself sounds to me like waste, fraud, and abuse. True reform stems from transparency, accountability, and commitment to data-driven decisions. It's time to align actions with experts' recommendations to genuinely serve our veterans. Let's just take a look at the years, yes, years of recommendations from the GAO. Even back in 2007, the GAO flagged the VA for not having enough trained staff or integrated planning to support returning veterans. That's almost 2 decades ago. 2016, mental health access. VA's inability to accurately track wait times and fill critical mental health provider positions continues to delay veterans' care. 2023, VA staffing strategy, still not in place. 2025, Veterans Community Care workload mismanagement. That was this year. So even when veterans are referred outside the VA for help, staffing and planning failures follow them. So when Doug Collins says they're going to cut 80,000 positions and then take an honest look, maybe at the GAO recommendations. That isn't just incompetence, it's dangerous. But don't take my word for it. I've linked every GAO report and findings below, and the truth is right there. They just choose not to listen. So, how did we get here? Some people might blame the current administration for trying to privatize the VA. And that might be true. But you know what else is true? This broken system gave them a leg to stand on. Because people have seen the dysfunction. They've waited, they've hoped, and they've watched while leadership promised reform, only for nothing to change. Worse, VA leadership has been caught again and again misleading the public about real problems behind the scenes. Let's be real. Top-down decisions made without frontline input don't just miss the mark, they cause chaos. Missed warnings, broken feedback loops, dangerous oversights. And you know what? We've seen that play out in black and white over and over again in GAO and OIG reports, persistent staffing shortages, incomplete workforce mapping, weak internal controls. And now, those same failures are being recreated on national TV. So when VA leadership says, don't worry, we're not cutting essential positions, ask yourself, do they even know what's essential? The answer is no. And if you're still watching at this point, you might be feeling overwhelmed. Because, yeah, it's hard. It's hard to believe. But this is what VA employees go through every single day. If the system is this broken, where do we even start? But here's the thing. Before we can fix it, we have to understand why it's broken. Because that's what this series is about. Not just exposing failures, but showing how this dysfunction was built. It was built and designed this way. Now, if you haven't been paying attention to what's going on in the media around the VA, let me catch you up. Because there's been a lot of questionable practices making headlines lately. From mass firings to hiring freezes, probationary employees, some of whom are veterans themselves, being wrongfully terminated. And that isn't just an opinion. Many of those firings were taken all the way to the Supreme Court. Now, why does that matter? Because it exposes a much deeper issue inside the VA. Top-down leadership that refuses to admit when it's wrong. Now, many people, federal employees, watchdog groups, even members of Congress, have spoke out, not just about what happened in the VA, but across the entire federal workforce.
At what point would you resign rather than follow an instruction from a superior?
Ranking member to comment.
Does it not weigh on your conscience that somebody's livelihood was terminated and you didn't do the due diligence to find out whether this memo was in fact true?
Ranking member Takano, if any employee is concerned.
Just look at the veterans that are sitting behind you, ma'am. You fired these people.
But instead of owning the mistake and learning from it, this administration doubled down. They stood 10 toes down all the way to the Supreme Court. Still in disbelief? Let's take a listen to how that actually sounds.
Our team has heard from scores of veterans who've been terminated as a result of these DOJ cuts. And there's an Air Force veteran who asked that we protect his identity. He says he was twice promoted, yet received a termination notice describing poor job performance. Take a listen.
Last week, to be locked out of my computer and handed a blanket termination email that was sent from OPM saying that I was being let go due to poor performance. And it's a flat out lie. It's a disgusting lie at that. You know, I received awards from upper management, certificates. I was treated like a criminal, like I had done something wrong. They're destroying people's lives to get to these numbers that you're requesting. If you don't realize that, I'm trying to let you know now. Here's your wake-up call.
So what do you say to that? The indiscriminate or dismissive treatment that some VA staffers are describing related to their termination?
Well, the one thing, this will be a probationary employee who was let go. This is where this has been coming from the process, which is an understanding we're looking at the total picture. This is an employee also that was in what was deemed out of those 300,000 plus jobs that I mentioned earlier, not a front-facing position that affects veterans' health directly or veterans' benefits directly. Look, this is something that we have. There's nothing that I take more serious than having to look at our workforce and having layoffs that happen. We feel for that, but it happens not only in government, it happens all across the country in many jobs that we're seeing just in the last little bit with Southwest Airlines.
Now, that was a short clip, but there's a lot packed into that response. First off, take note of his tone. His very first response was, well, that was a probationary employee. And honestly, the way he said it, it almost sounded like the question was ridiculous, dismissive, like the veteran's experience didn't even warrant discussion. This makes me wonder if Doug Collins even understands what it means to be a probationary employee, because he's sure acting like that status justifies the way this man was treated. Let's break that down for folks who may not be familiar with how it works in federal service. Being probationary isn't a disciplinary status. It's not a reflection of poor performance. In the private sector, probation might mean you're under review. But in federal service, it usually means one thing: you're new. You could be a brand new VA hire, someone a veteran may have waited for months to see because of long hiring backlogs. Or, like the veteran who spoke up in the clip, you could have been a career VA employee with a stellar record and just recently been promoted to a new supervisory role. What really matters from that clip? The Secretary of Veterans Affairs didn't take this moment to acknowledge a mistake or show accountability. Instead, he did what too many top-down leaders do. He dodged the question. He pivoted. Rather than address the reality that veterans are being wrongfully terminated, he shifted to vague, corporate-sounding lines like, layoffs are hard, every organization goes through it.
Okay, press conference 101. You want to look smart, answer their question with your own question and then answer that question.
When it comes to project management, whether you're rolling out a new app or trying to overhaul a massive federal agency, there's one rule that always applies. You must track the impact of your changes. That's not a nice to have. It's a standard. It's basic. And when the project is as big and complex as reforming the VA, that principle should be carved in stone. But let's take a ridiculously simplified example. Say I want to save money at the VA, right? That's reasonable. But instead of reviewing the actual work being done or figuring out who's essential to keep it running, I just decide to slash a huge chunk of staff suddenly. There's no one left to do the work. Now that sounds insane, right? Because it is. But that's exactly what's happening. Now, one thing I will give Doug credit for is his undeniable love for the camera and his sustainable effort to provide transparency. Why is that a good thing? Because it finally makes it easy for people like me to show the public exactly why the VA has been broken for years. Doug may think he's pulling back the curtain, but what he's really doing is confirming what so many of us on the inside have been saying all along. The truth is, the VA hasn't lacked transparency by accident. It's been strategically opaque by design. Just like how OIG reports often stop at documenting symptoms of a problem while skipping right over the root cause. That's not a coincidence. That's policy. For years, the public has been seeing the version of the VA that leadership wanted them to see. But thanks to Doug Collins, camera ready and confident, we finally get a clear view of why top-down leadership doesn't work. And it never will. Let's take a perfect example brought to you by Doug himself.
You got to see this. I've been given this report. It says we were taking millions of contracts in dollars in contracts to create things like PowerPoint slide and meeting minutes. Folks, if you don't know how to run PowerPoint slides, learn. It's a tutorial on your computer. Go learn for free. It's okay. Take your own notes. Wow, I'll send you one of my pencils if you need one, but we're not paying millions of dollars for consultants to do this for.
Wow, what a leader. For those who didn't catch that subtle tone, let's run this clip instead.
Okay, how about this? You get me to the time machine, and when I get back, I open a savings account in your name. That way, 500 years later, it'll be worth billions. Billions!
Oh, I like money.
Yeah.
How many billions?
It's 80, Frito. It's $80 billion. That's a mighty big minus, isn't it?
Yeah, I like money, though. That wasn't really part of the deal.
Okay, I'll throw in another couple billion, all right?
I like money.
Now, here's the thing. He's not entirely wrong. Yes, it is wild that the VA needed contract employees to make training slides or take meeting minutes. But instead of digging into why that was happening, Doug jumped straight to the punchline without ever reading the setup. So let's break it down for him, since he seems to be a little confused. In theory, contractors are supposed to fill short-term, project-based needs. Think of a contractor like a backup generator. You bring them in when something big is happening, then you unplug them when the project ends. For example, a team might hire a contractor to support a major rollout like Console Toolbox. The idea was to bring someone in, help manage the work, track milestones, handle admin support, and then projects done, so is the contract. Makes sense, right? But here's the problem. The process failed before people ever had a chance to. In the case of Consult Toolbox, no one was tracking success metrics. The project dragged on with vague updates, milestones slipped, deliverables got missed, and guess what? That lack of oversight, it wasn't the fault of the contractor. It wasn't even the fault of frontline staff. It was the system. And yet when leadership like Secretary Doug jumps in front of a camera and mocks contracts for PowerPoint help, saying, if you don't know how to use PowerPoint, go watch a tutorial, he completely misses the point. That kind of blanket contempt, it ignores the real failure. No process oversight, no built-in accountability, no plan for continuity. Let me walk you through what happens when these decisions are made for optics instead of operations. It was late one afternoon, and I happened to be on a project team call for Console Toolbox. The manager all of a sudden comes on the call and quickly tells the contractor that was taking our notes that she has to leave immediately. There was no explanation. The next day, we found out her contract had suddenly been cut as part of this cost-saving effort. We tried to move forward, but it quickly became obvious that we couldn't. That contractor had all the documents that we needed, and of course, no one had access to the documents. One person, one contractor, and the entire conversation stopped dead in its tracks. Now imagine that playing out across dozens of projects, across hundreds of contractors, with no transition plan. The amount of time and money wasted chasing down files, rescheduling meetings, restarting conversations, that's not cutting waste. That's just relocating it.
What's his name? What's his name? I got nothing on a name. Come on, baby, what's the name? We threw out his name!
If you've been paying attention, warning signs should be flashing everywhere. Earlier, we highlighted a GAO recommendation emphasizing the need for better contract management within the VA, not eliminating contracts, but managing them effectively. So, Doug, considering the VA is notorious for understaffing, where employees juggle multiple roles, is it possible that those contracts you dismissed as mere PowerPoint creators were actually integral, vital projects? Now let's bring this dysfunction full circle. And for those that are still here with me, I truly, truly thank you. We've seen VA employees speak out bravely about how these changes are already impacting care and how devastating they could become. We've seen well-known veteran advocacy groups raise alarms. We've seen many Democratic lawmakers take a stance. We've seen veterans themselves, the very people this system is meant to serve, speak up and speak out. But maybe the better question is, who hasn't spoke out?
I take Secretary Collins at his word when he says there will be no impact to the delivery of care, benefits, and services for veterans with this plan.
Here's where I have to stop and ask, why? If the experts are warning us, if the people on the ground are raising red flags, if veterans themselves are saying this is hurting us, then why is Congressman Bost saying he's just taking Collins at his word. Does Bost have years of experience working inside the VA system? No. Does he rely on VA healthcare and see how it functions day to day? Also no. One of my process improvement instructors once said something that has stuck with me, and I think now more than ever it's so important. He said, "In God we trust, all others must bring data." What did he mean by that? He meant real reform doesn't happen through blind loyalty, partisan narratives, or gut feelings. It happens through evidence. It happens through data, understanding the actual process, not just believing someone who says, trust me. Right now, there's something super important that we all need to remember. Emotions are high across this country. I've seen a lot of finger pointing, who voted for who, which party did what. But behind every wave of manufactured chaos, there's always a why. We don't have time to argue amongst ourselves about how we got here. The point is we are here, and in this moment, it's bigger than politics. United we stand, divided we fall isn't just a t-shirt slogan, it's a warning. Next time someone says the VA is being reformed, ask for receipts. Leadership may deny the crisis, but real VA workers and veterans, we know better. I resigned, and I did not take the offer. Not because the fight didn't matter, but because I refused to let the system take the fight from me. So now I fight. I fight by educating, exposing, and speaking for people who can't speak for themselves. To my fellow and current former VA employees, I see you, and I am so sorry you're going through this. But we still have a responsibility to each other, to this nation, and to the veterans we serve. This administration says it's aiming for generational reform. We know how badly reform is needed, but we also know the consequences when it's built on misinformation, bad data, and broken intentions. Some people, especially those who want to silence the truth, will try and spin this as just another disgruntled employee. But I can tell you, my performance appraisals say otherwise. And for those people, I tell them I have receipts. Do you? I didn't write The Illusion of High Reliability for revenge. I wrote it to build a platform for people like me. People who want to speak out but don't know how, or are too afraid, and rightfully so. Someone once told me I underestimate how much people actually care. But I refuse to believe that. Let's show them, America. Show them that we actually care. The book is linked in the description. Please subscribe, comment, and if you've lived this dysfunction, by all means, please, give your input. It's so important right now during this crazy time. It's time to talk. The illusion is cracking. Thanks for watching.